folks, sorry we were a tiny bit late because me and Becca were talking about shaved heads and having shaved heads and what fun it is and hair disasters that we've had in the past. So yeah, hello, welcome to the Literary Witches project. I nearly said podcast. This is not a podcast, clearly. It's a YouTube live chat, and yeah, this is, well, technically May's edition, but it's already June. It's the 2nd of June because we tried on Friday the 29th of June, 4 days ago, and we had some technical issues with Becca's sound, so we rescheduled, and Becca very kindly agreed to do this evening. So hello to everyone that's in there. Do you want to say hi, Becca?
Hello everybody. I apologize because I can't see the chat. I'm on an old device in order to get the sound to work, and if I get the chat up then it blocks the entire screen out, so I do apologize. I can't see anybody. I presume you're there.
They are there. And what I'll do is, if anyone has any questions for Becca specifically, you know, just type Becca and then put your thing and I'll read it out to Becca. But any questions that we get, I'll read out so that we can both answer them, or any pertinent comments. Becca, do you want to let everyone know the author and the book that we had for May?
Oh, yes. Wow. We had, for the month of May, Sylvia Plath.
Yeah.
The book that we picked from her publications was The Bell Jar.
Oh, I've got a very shiny, sexy hardback version.
Yeah, mine on my device because I had it read to me rather than reading it. But what, you loved it, right?
I did. I mean, I was surprised because I found, obviously I do those little bio videos for each author at the beginning of the month, and I found researching Sylvia Plath herself, her life, really like, oh god, heavy going. So I was kind of dreading The Bell Jar, but I'd heard so many good things about it, and then I got to reading it and I really enjoyed it. Like I'm just gonna say it's now one of my favorite books. It's now one of my favorite books.
I really wish I could say I could not get into this at all, and I think probably because it's kind of although she changes names and characters, it's sort of like autobiographical. Is that a word?
Yeah, that's the word.
So yeah, and I did find it quite heavy going because I kind of knew how it would end for her. So, and I think the other thing is, if you've suffered with any kind of like depression, or you notice that as you're reading, you kind of resonate with her, what she's thinking and how she's thinking.
Yeah, that's interesting because you've spoken about your mental health issues and struggles in the past, and for you found it difficult to read that, whereas for me, as someone who's, you know, suffers with depression, I actually felt really seen and kind of validated by reading this and seeing that, like, her, the way she articulates so poetically the way that she's feeling. It's like, oh, like she sort of puts into words something in a way that I can't, and it makes me feel seen. And you know, this was written, you know, this was published in the early 60s. She wrote it not long before she died, and so this book is like 60 years old. This is a struggle that people have had for eternity, right? Well, not eternity, but since humans have existed, these kind of struggles. So I felt seen. Are there any, did you like the way that she actually wrote though, or was it just the subject matter that you found difficult?
I think it was probably the way she wrote as well, because I just couldn't, when a story grips you and you follow it, you know, as you're listening to it, you're almost picturing it in your head as you're reading it. Everything she was saying seemed to blend into one. couldn't.
That's interesting.
See the point of why she was saying certain things, rather than getting to the point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just didn't. I just couldn't. I couldn't grip onto it, and I thought, first two chapters, okay, maybe the third one as it gets going, I might get into it, and no, it just didn't.
That's really interesting. I find that really interesting. For me, it was when I read the first page, it felt I had the similar feeling when I read the first page of Octavia E. Butler's Kindred, where it just sort of got straight into it, and I found it really easy to read, and I felt that Sylvia Plath and Octavia Butler have this very similar way of touching and on really serious topics and themes, but somehow writing them in a really sort of relatable and understandable way. So for me, obviously, Octavia Butler writes in a very straightforward way, and Plath writes in a very poetic way. Their styles are very different, but somehow there's something similar to them about it, and I sort of felt like I jumped straight into it. I find that fascinating how I kind of like that we've both kind of got a really different view, because it's going to give a difference to the discussion. I'm just going to have a look and see who's actually in the room, and just see if anyone's got any comments or questions already. So Wickham 222 is here, Naomi Hewitt, Christina, Little Zen Crone, Julie, hi, Sandra at the Whispering Well, Kay Thompson is here, Simon at the Hermit's Cave, hi Simon, Rose Coleman, Ravensong's here, hello, Christina, who else did I say? Christina already. Selkie's here, hello Selkie. Oh, Laura Amatrine Aquamarine 18, sorry, is here. Claire 5 is here, Melanie McLaurin, who also listened to the audiobook. I do hear a friend of mine said that there was an audio version read by Maggie Gyllenhaal, so I don't know if that's the one that you listened to.
I'm not sure. Let me just check Audible, because I wondered, if it was
Lightning Equus is here, hello.
I wondered if it was the who read it.
Yeah, Kimberly Myers here. Sea Willow, hi Jennifer.
I'm not sure who not a narrator, is it?
No, Debbie, hello Debbie.
I can't actually see. I've just got it doesn't actually tell me.
Oh, how weird.
Yeah.
That it doesn't say who's narrated it. Debbie's here, Tell Raven Tarot, Corvid's here, hey. Lynette Morgan. Loads, Tycon's here. Bloody hell, there's loads of you here. Hello, lovely to see you all. I am surprised. I wasn't very good at sort of promoting the reschedule. I sort of put it on my community thing, and I think I actually forgot to put it on Instagram. Terrible. I'm rubbish at social media.
I put it in the community tab. I forget about the community.
It's handy to have. Tarot and Tattoos is here. Hello. So yeah, I wanted to maybe just I've tabbed it quite a bit. There's tabs along the top and the side. I sort of ran out of space along the top, and I just sort of wrote I just sort of highlighted sort of highlighted bits that sort of stood out to me. And there was just like little turns of phrases or the way that she explained things. And there was this one bit, where was it, about where was it? So I'm just trying to find the bit where she talks about the rain. Here we go. And I really like that. I always really like hearing descriptions of rain in book. Two of my favorite books ever actually feature rain. There's Stormy Weather by Carl Hiason and The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. Both feature the rain quite heavily, and I think that's part of the reason I love them. But I just love the way she described it here, where she's talking about, because she's on this placement in New York, this Esther, in the book. So this is mirroring Plath's life, where when she I think it was either in between a summer at college or a summer after college, when she'd finished, she did a month at a magazine, I think it's called Mademoiselle, which was quite sought after, and it wasn't what she'd expected. So she's come out of the office and she says, When we came out of the sunnily lit interior of the Ladies' Day offices, which is a place they've been visiting, the streets were grey and fuming with rain. It wasn't the nice kind of rain that rinses you clean, but the sort of rain I imagine they must have in Brazil. It flew straight down from the sky in drops the size of coffee saucers and hit the hot sidewalks with a hiss that sent clouds of steam wreathing up from the gleaming dark concrete. And I was just like, oh, what a description of city rain in the summer. I really like that. I can almost see that steam. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me the bits that stood out were and it probably is from the way my brain is thinking about how she talks and what she's writing about, because the first thing that hit me and that she kept mentioning was the execution of the Rosenbergs.
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah.
That's in the first opening. She can't get past it. She can't stop thinking about it. She can't stop thinking about, I wonder what it's like to be electrocuted.
Yeah, she's got that macabre fascination.
Yeah, and that is to do with her depression. But also the fact that she's got this job at the magazine. When she first starts, she's a guest editor, isn't she?
Yeah.
And she knows that she should be having the time of her life, but she feels deadened.
Yeah. And you know what? I also really related to that. So not only is she obviously in the midst of this huge depressive episode, but I used to work in fashion. I used to work in the fashion industry. I used to work in the high-end fashion industry in Chelsea and Kensington and Chelsea. It was designer. We dealt a lot with important A-list people. And everyone's like, oh, it must be so wonderful, but it was a lot of hard work, and it was a lot of ooh darling wah wah nonsense that I just couldn't. It just all felt very shallow and hollow. And then when you throw in a bit of depression on top of that, you're like, it just can make you just feel so empty, because you're surrounded by all this fabulous darling, and you're just like, you're not feeling it. And I could really relate to that, and I was like, I'm supposed to be like the happiest I've ever been. I've done everything to get to this point, and I'm miserable as sin, frankly. So I could really relate to that as well, like hugely.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think maybe that's why, not being able to concentrate fully on what she's actually saying, because what she's saying is transporting me to different aspects of my life. So I'm not hearing. But maybe that was the aim of the book. And also she talks about at the beginning about marriage and domestic life. It seems to be a really big deal for her, doesn't it? In the like chapters of the book. Because Buddy Willard is her boyfriend.
Oh yeah, that fell end.
She wonders if she should, marry him when he recovers from tuberculosis.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she goes skiing, like having never actually skied, and ends up like having a massive accident. He should not have taken her. What an idiot.
Because she says like, oh well, I'll carry on, I'll go up there, and he's like, no, your leg is broken in 2 places. So, and then she's got this whole time of healing as well with that, which doesn't really help.
Yeah, she was stuck. She couldn't really do anything. I found a bit that I really liked here. I've got so many tabs. I won't be able to talk about all of them, but there was this thing where she has a bath when she goes back to the hotel she's staying at in New York, and she's talking about she's been out on that night out with her friend, and like a couple of guys, and she's all like freaked out and she wants to come home, and she will go back to the hotel, and she goes back to her room and she has a bath, a really hot bath. And I found that really interesting. You know, when we talk about resetting our day or just having a shower or a hot bath and just sort of getting the slate clean, but she explains it really, really well here. She says, I never felt so much myself as when I'm in a hot bath. I lay in that tub on the 17th floor of this hotel for women only, high up over the jazz and push of New York, for near on to an hour, and I felt myself growing pure again. And then she talks about like baptism, and then she says, I said to myself, Doreen is dissolving, Doreen being the friend that she went out with. Lenny Shepherd is dissolving. Frankie is dissolving. New York is dissolving. They are all dissolving away, and none of them matter anymore. I don't know them. I have never known them, and I am very pure. All that liquor and those sticky kisses I saw and the dirt that settled on my skin on the way back is turning into something pure. The longer I lay there in the clear hot water, the purer I felt. And when I stepped out at last and wrapped myself in one of the big soft white hotel bath towels, I felt pure and sweet as a new baby. And that was I really liked that idea of, you know, when you're just like, oh, I just need a bath.
Yeah.
And she's using it as a tool.
Exactly. Yeah. But then it all goes rapidly downhill after that, doesn't it? She gets unstable and she actually stops bathing. Then she just stops bathing. Her mum takes her to this psychiatrist, which is Dr. Gordon.
Yeah.
And he suggests like the electric shock treatment. So she decides to kill herself. You know, and she's talking about she tries to slit her wrists, but you know, she only bring herself to actually slash her car. And then she thinks about hanging herself, but she can't find a place to tie the rope in the low ceilinged house.
And she goes to the beach, doesn't she? And she thinks about letting this she thinks about letting the sea take her. She also thinks about swimming out to sea to that rock, and she doesn't. She can't, you know, she just can't seem to do it. So she's obviously in distress and doesn't know how to like get out of her situation. And it is heartbreaking, but she writes about it in such a way as almost it has a slight flippance to it.
Yeah.
This poetic flippance to it.
One thing that I found really sad, which I thought, you know, when she does decide that pills is the good option, and she takes herself to the basement and goes in that crawl space and to take the pills, and it reminded me, you know, like a wounded animal, very often when they are going to die, they'll crawl off somewhere under a building or something, just out of the way. It's like a place.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought of the wounded animal thing. That's a really good point. They do that, and actually, this was something that Sylvia herself actually did do. This is definitely an autobiographical part of the book. When she was like 19 or 20, 21, somewhere around then, she did that exact thing. But fortunately she was found, you know, and she was cared for, taken to hospital, but she was in hospital for a long time, and she was sort of bouncing from institution to institution after that, really, wasn't she?
She was, and you know, she then gets the woman psychiatrist.
What's her name? Dr. Oh goodness, Dr. Nolan.
You know, and she actually gets the shock therapy, and it works. I mean, it does actually work for some people, and you know, it can be a really effective treatment.
It's really interesting though, because you see the way that, you know, I mean, I feel like we have come on with regards to mental health care and mental health awareness, and being sort of taking care of our mental well-being. And I always find it a bit strange when we talk about mental health, because our brains are actually a part of our body. It is also, mental health is physical health, you know. It's a strange way, it's strange how we separate the mind from the head, but also that brings a lot of stigma with it, and it always, you know, it always has. And we, as a society, as a culture, the world is trying to slowly break that down. But there's this bit where she, you know, she goes to see this Dr. Gordon, the guy that she finds really irritating and not very helpful at all. And she goes out to her mum and she says, she's like, I'm not coming back to Dr. Gordon next week. And her mum smiles and says, I knew my baby wasn't like that. And she says, I looked at her, like what? And her mum says, like those awful people, those awful dead people at that hospital. She paused. I knew you'd decide to be all right again. And that's just so telling. You decide to be all right. And there's still this prevalent idea that mental health issues, you just, if you, I mean, when I was in the midst of some of my most like depressive episode, even my own mum, who has suffered with depression herself, was just like, I want just get up and have a shower and like you'll feel better, just clean your teeth. And that really blew my mind that I'm getting that advice from someone who's been through the same thing. I don't fucking know. Like, that doesn't help.
No, it's like the pull yourself together part, isn't it? Oh, put yourself together, and you're like, oh, you know, if only I'd have thought of that.
If only I'd thought of like being, you know, just doing all those things. And people go, have you tried meditation? Have you tried yoga? Have you tried treating yourself to some delicious chocolate? And I'm like, go fuck yourself. Like, just
diet. If you change your diet, then, you know.
Oh yeah, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, her mum used to say. Yeah, my mum said that to me, pull your socks up, pull yourself, because my mum's of a different generation obviously, and is just like, just neck some pills, have some happy pills and fucking get on with it. And I'm like, maybe some talking therapy, maybe some like changing the way you speak to yourself will help, maybe some like self-care. I don't know, it's a very, very different I think the younger generations are getting a lot better at talking about it. But yeah, it was blew my mind that this was 60 years ago. I've read books set in sort of Regency England and like Victorian times, and they say stupid shit like and I would say, it's, if people haven't been through it, then they can't possibly understand. But I've literally had people who've been through the same thing saying the same stupid trite advice, and I'm like, really?
And I think sometimes it's just about that people actually don't know what to say, even if you have been through it yourself. And I think when we're in that situation and we're trying to talk to somebody with that, sometimes we just don't know what to say, and we say stupid shit. Because so I mean, the closing of the sort of like the first chapter, when she leaves and starts her winter semester at college, and she, she believes that she's actually got a grasp of sanity, but she knows that could descend on her again at any minute. So it's like a monster that is hovering over her head every single time she's doing something, different or moving forward. It's always there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's this little, I always imagine it like a little black cloud following you around. I found the part of the book where she's talking about mental versus physical health. It's quite interesting, and like getting out of bed is really pertinent to what we're just saying. So she says, don't you want to get up today? No. This is once she's in the hospital, the fancy hospital that's being paid for by a benefactor that had mental health issues herself, again based on a real life friend who did the same for Sylvia. No. I huddled down more deeply in the bed and pulled the sheet up over my head. Then I lifted a corner of the sheet and peered out. The nurse was shaking down the thermometer she had just removed from my mouth. You see, it's normal. had looked at the thermometer before she came to collect it the way I always did. You see, it's normal. What do you keep taking it for? I wanted to tell her that if only something were wrong with my body, it would be fine. I would rather have anything wrong with my body than something wrong with my head. But the idea seemed so involved and wearisome that I didn't say anything. I only burrowed down further in the bed. So she's explaining, like, why can't I just have a physical problem? No one says if you've got diabetes. Well, if you just like us. Bonus Mr. Bear situation. Where? And he's gone. And like, if you like, no one's saying, oh, if you've got a broken arm, they'd say, oh, come on, you just get on with it. You just expect people to like be bandaged up or put a cast on them and some crutches and allow them the time and the rest to heal. But we don't with the head, right?
But there's one that I've got before she starts the monster, and she says, I guess I should have been excited the way most of the other girls were, but I couldn't get myself to react. I felt very still and very empty.
Yeah, it's just oof. It's a tough one, isn't it? I've actually found the bit as well where she talks about the bell jar. Can I find it? I found the bit. Oh, I've tabbed a bit about the bell jar, but not her initial mention of it. But the idea of the bell jar was that she felt like the reason it's called the bell jar is that she feels like she's under this glass dome and she's suffocating and stewing in her own air, that, you know, stale air. And that, you know, towards the end of the book, she says she feels the bell jar lift and she can breathe again and she feels so much better, doesn't she?
Yeah, she refers to it as the bell jar of her madness.
Yes. She's kind of owning it, isn't she? Yeah, she says here about getting visitors, and she's to the hospital, and she's, I hated these visits because I kept feeling the visitors measuring my fat and stringy hair against what I had been, and that they want and what they wanted me to be, and I knew that they went away utterly confounded. But also the disappointment, you know, like how she's not achieving as a young woman and as a smart, intelligent, articulate academic young woman. There's an expectation, and there's that whole thing about the gifted child who's pushed, who then goes on to become a stressed and anxious adult. And it's like a thing. It's a recognized thing. But she says here, I felt very low. I had been unmasked, as in unmasked and not really being interested in being at the magazine. Only that morning by JC herself, who was the actual editor. And I felt now that all the uncomfortable suspicions I had had about myself were coming true, and I couldn't hide the truth much longer. After 19 years of running after good marks and prizes and grants of one sort or another, I was letting up, slowing down, dropping clean out of the race. And she's just sort of like, she's giving up, you know?
Yeah.
Just so tough. So tough.
Yeah. I mean, it does have some like quite close friendship. So she spends a lot of time with Doreen.
Oh yeah, the wild child type Doreen, yeah.
And who else was it? She's yeah. So yeah, you know, a few guys that she meets one at a bar, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
But she tells, I thought this was quite funny, that she tells the men that her name is Ellie Higginbottom.
Yeah, from Chicago, was it? She says she's from.
Yeah, I think so.
From Chicago, I think. Yeah. So she's like putting herself aside, and she can just be someone else for a while.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Me too. Why not? It's fun. What was I going to say? That was it. I was going to have another look through the chat, because I think quite a bit's gone through. and I don't want to miss. Tammy Pie's here. Hello, Tammy Pie. And Cross Path Lucian is here. Hello. Integrative Healing is Sedana is here. Hello. Oh, I saw her mention Jen. Is Jen? Oh, does she mean Jen Willow? Sea Willow is here. That was one of my favourite lines in the book. Which was that one talking about Science to Soul? Oh, Jen, Science to Soul Tarot with Jen is here. Hi, Jen. I spotted a Jen. I took a deep breath and listened to the old brag of my heart. I am. Yes, I really liked that as well. Tell Raven Tarot. Oh, you were live before us, Sedana. I didn't realise. Just seeing. Well, there's so many. It's brilliantly descriptive, says Tammy Pie. I had to stop reading every once in a while because it is so heavy. Jamie, sorry, the chat like only lets me scroll up to 12 minutes ago. It won't let me go up past that. That's really weird. So I'm sorry if whoever I've missed since then. Sorry.
Well, I'm quite glad to. Was that Tammy Pie? It said just stop reading at different times.
Yeah.
It was not it's not like a not an enjoyable read for me, put it that way, you know.
That's the thing. It was like what we were saying about Kindred. Like we felt strange saying we really enjoyed the book because it was so heavy, but at the same time it was written in such a way that it was a pleasure and easy to read. And I don't mean easy as in it's simple or it's not a complex story, but easy, and it just sort of just flowed, you know. It just flowed from the pages.
What made it flow for me was the true experiences mingled in with fantasy.
Yes.
Part of it carried me through the book and gripped me, whereas it's just real and raw.
Yeah, Debbie said something interesting. She said, people don't know what to say. It's a thing with us humans that we just want to make people better instead of accepting that not all can be healed instantly, and just sitting with someone helps. That's a really good point. I've been following Caitlin Doherty probably since about 2012. She's known as Ask a Mortician or here on YouTube. She's got a really great channel about death positivity. I absolutely adore her. She's amazing. And she always says when you're talking about to someone really difficult like death, because obviously this is what she does, she says the best thing to say if you don't know what to say is to simply say to someone, I'm so sorry, I don't know what to say, but what can I do? I am here for you. You know, so ever since I heard her say that a few years ago, that's the tack I take. If someone is dealing with something that I find really can't find the words for it, I just say I can't find the words right now, but like I'm that's really shitty, I'm really sorry this is happening to you, what can I do, how can I help, do you want me to just sit with you, do you want me to just listen? And I think we need to get better at doing that, and just understanding that you don't have to have an answer, you know. Sometimes people just want to offload or sit quietly or have a distraction.
Because there isn't really nothing like apart from doing that you can do, is there? I mean, there isn't anything you can do. That part of healing from those things comes from that person dealing with like a professional, but the friends around, you can't say anything to help because you don't know. There isn't anything you can say. It needs to be said by somebody that knows what they're doing. So as a friend, you just say, right, okay, I'm kind of here, but I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I think a lot of people will appreciate that. Raven Tarot says, actually, with people physical pain, people do say this kind of thing all the time, I think, with like, just buck up or sort yourself out. And they said, especially with chronic illness, and me and you, obviously, you know, and I know that Raven Tarot can as well, can relate to that, being sufferers of chronic illness and having chronic pain daily, that people are like right now I'm kind of a bit off my face on painkillers because I'm in pain. I had to take some. I try not to if I can, but sometimes you just have to just take the damn painkillers. And people are like, oh, but surely you're tired again, you spent the afternoon in bed. Like, I slept for 2 hours this afternoon. I glided Simon and I was like laying in bed, I'm like, I'm gonna lay down now, I'm so tired. And I slept for 2 hours. I was out, you know. And my mum will be like, oh, what have you done today? Oh, you've been in bed. And I'm like, I'm chronically ill, i.e. there are good days or bad days, but I'm chronically ill. So this is like a thing. She just thinks that like one day I'm going to wake up and be like, oh.
It's not about sleep. It doesn't matter how many hours of sleep you get. That's not the issue. And it's just, yeah. So
yeah, when people go, oh, I've been really tired before. Oh, you tell someone with ME or fibromyalgia that when that person doesn't have them, like that they've been really tired and they've had a couple of nights of not sleeping. I'm like, oh, don't, because I'm really like, it's really tone deaf. People, don't do it, please, because yeah, it doesn't matter how much fucking sleep you get, it doesn't really work. But you can't, you know, that thing where you cannot stay awake and you're like, you'll just fall asleep and you wake up and you're like, great, I still feel tired, but I guess whatever. It's a thing. Yeah, but like, see, Willow says that's because you can see physical illness and you can't see mental illness. People think you're faking. But with chronic illnesses, invisible chronic illnesses, people can't see it, so they think you're faking. So for me, I on the outside, especially if I've done my hair and makeup and like Becca's put a lovely red lipstick on and she's got a lovely necklace on, and you think, oh, they look fine. They can't see the pain, the exhaustion, all the work that you do if you've got a party to go to, all the resting you do beforehand, all the resting you do afterwards, all the like things you have to do to look after yourself, so you're like not. But people go, but you look okay.
Yeah, you look really well.
You look so great.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see you so well, and you know, getting on so well. So you know, you must be fine now then.
Yeah, they're like, oh, are you better now?
I just don't. I mean, I don't talk about it because I'm like sick of talking about it, if you know what I mean. And it's not what defines you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Not,
of course.
You're not like, oh, Kelly with the ME. Oh, Kelly. Oh, yeah, I know Kelly with the ME. Or yeah, I know Becca with the ME. Like,
yeah,
no, I've got it. It's not going anywhere for some reason. So I'm gonna like carry on. And I think that's what I stands out for me in the book, is that she tries so hard at everything, doesn't she? She tries with relationships. She tries with the work at the magazine, and she
yeah.
So yeah, sounds really depressing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a depressing topic. It's like talking about kindred. It's essentially about, you know, slavery and plantations, and you know, it's a depressing topic, but somehow manages to be like just an enjoyable book anyway. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm just having a look through the things, the chat. Meow meow. I could definitely, Raven Song says, I could definitely feel her disconnect with her own humanity when she interacts with others. You that kind of, you know, when you're like, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where you're with a group of people and everyone's talking, but you feel like you're kind of floating away in space and detached from everything. I could really relate to that.
Yeah, me too.
Tarot Ladies here. Hello. Sorry if I missed you earlier. Lots of chat going on. Love Ask a Mortician. It's such a, yeah, she's brilliant. Caitlin Doty. Her Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. I've read that one. I need to get her other 2 books. She's brilliant.
She does some really good videos as well, doesn't she? She's so funny.
She's so funny. I love her. And she's got there's really good talk. She's done podcast, like she's spoken on people's podcasts. Basically, if it's got her in it, I follow on Twitter, Instagram. If I can find anything with her in it, I will watch it or listen to it. I read her Order of the Good Death, her blog and stuff like that.
Even when she goes with her friend, you know, they've got this. They go to that lecture and then they go to see the baby being born.
Oh God, I've actually thingied that, the baby thing. When he goes,
that she doesn't see sort of like any sort of joy and wonderment in it, does she? Because then
but I like what stood out to me was the way that the guys were like, we're going to handle this, and all I could think about was Betty Draper going in to have a baby in Mad Men, and the way that it's all handled and it's all medicalized. But what's his name? Is it Buddy says, "You oughtn't see this," Will muttered in my ear. Sorry, what's his name? Will. Oh no, Will. Sorry, no. What's his name? Will. No, it is Buddy. Is there someone else called Will there? Anyway, Will muttered in my ear, "You'll never want to see..." Oh, it's Buddy Willis, that's why I think. "You'll never want to have a baby if you do. They oughtn't let women to watch. It'll be the end of the human race." And I'm like, you fucking arrogant tit, because before, you know, everything was medicalized, the death industry was medicalized, you know, birth and death were medicalized. Women were the ones that took care of the births and the deaths. They were the overseers of it. So him being like, "Oh, women shouldn't see this," I was like, you fool, like, crack open a history book. What the fuck?
What did make me chuckle was after that, you know, we'd seen the baby being born, Buddy asks her, you know, she goes back to his place and he asks her if she's ever seen a naked man. He said no. And he asked, you know, if she would like to see him naked, so she agreed. The sight of him naked made her think of turkey neck and turkey gizzards.
I mean, she's not wrong.
No,
that really did make me laugh.
Yeah, I thought when I heard that, I thought, yeah, she's got.
Oh dear. Yeah, she wasn't impressed, was she?
No.
What I found interesting that you mentioned earlier, where you were saying she was trying so hard at stuff, and she was trying so hard to do all these things that are seen as what normal people do, which is like find a partner in order to, you know, get married and like maybe try and have a, you know, all these things. And it was all about trying to be normal when she felt anything but, you know.
Absolutely. And that pressure, you know, that surrounds her all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that just makes her mental health a whole lot worse. You know, because there's no acceptance for somebody to be different, is there?
Yeah. I'm just reading, just having a quick read through. Were there any other characters in the book that you actually quite enjoyed or really disliked, other than, you know, because we've spoken obviously about Esther herself a lot?
Not that really stood out. No, and yeah, or apart from her, you know, her mother features quite. And there's a Mrs. Willard, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
But no, nobody kind of stood out.
There's that girl Joan that shows up in the hospital towards the end that she kind of knew and who had dated Buddy as well. And she ends up sort of following Esther around quite a bit, doesn't she? And she's the one that helps Esther when Esther loses her virginity with the professor.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, I've been Googling that. Does anyone, because she was hemorrhaging. She was literally hemorrhaging. She'd gone to have the cap fitted, the diaphragm, because the doctor gave her a name and a place to go to, and said she had privileges to go out from the hospital. But what I don't understand is, because we don't use I don't know, maybe some people don't use diaphragms in this day and age generally as a rule. I can't work, as the doctor knew that he said she's 1 in a million for what happened to her, and I'm guessing it's something to do with the contraceptive and then having sex, but I couldn't work out what had happened. Could you work it out?
Not really. I mean, the only thing I could think of is that that maybe it had been placed wrong or inserted wrong, and yeah, it caused damage inside, which then caused the hemorrhage. I couldn't really think of anything else other than that.
Yeah, I couldn't work out if it had like done something to her cervix or something. I don't know, but I was like, oof. It was like when she kept talking about, and I'm like, oh God, it was making me feel proper queasy. My goodness.
And like you said, it's like one in, what was it, 1 in a million, 1 in a million chances of that happening, and it happens to her in amongst all this other shit.
I know. I mean, she's just not very lucky at all. Bless her. At all. So I'm just having another. Selkie said, "I never eat turkey again. Thanks." Oops. Tammy Pie says, I think her hymen hemorrhage. The whole hymen thing is actually a bit of a misnomer, because hymens can be broken through swimming, horse riding, sports, all sorts of stuff. A lot of the time they're broken, and they're very fine piece of. You wouldn't get that amount of hemorrhaging from just a hymen breaking. As far as I understand, it's a very thin, and it's usually broken by sort of mid to teenage, generally, most from what I understand.
You can break like a bicycle.
Oh, Tal Raven says, no, I think she had an imperforate hymen, one that needs to be surgically removed. So I have heard of that. So yeah, I take it back. Apologies, Tammy Pie.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Oof. Goodness me. Yeah, that was grim. But yeah, poor Joan. Poor Joan was ended up ending things, didn't she? And that was really sad.
Buddy's in the sanatorium.
Yeah.
So it's just she's surrounded by all this like death and decay.
Yeah, for one so young. It's really sad. But her dad died when she was young, didn't he, as well? And that's autobiographical, because he really did as well.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, because I had listened to some interviews and some poetry, her own poetry read by herself, by Sylvia Plath, when I was reading this book, I could actually hear it in her voice. And when you reading the way that she writes in her voice, it really matches really well. You can really go, yeah, I can really see and hear her. It was quite interesting. Any other little things you want to mention before we pick our author for June?
No, I mean, the only other thing that stands out for me was when her mum sends her that article, and it reinforces the message that she had from Mrs. Willard and Buddy, that women and men have fundamentally different needs and natures, and a woman must discipline her behaviour in anticipation of pleasing her future husband.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, but no, that's it really. And I just found it incredibly sad that you're going through her life here, all her struggles, and at the end she does what she really intended to do all along. It was just waiting for the right time, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the bit in the final chapter, she's talking about, she writes about when she's leaving the hospital, and her mum says to her, we'll take up where we left off, Esther, she had said with her sweet martyr's smile. We'll act as if all of this was a bad dream. And then Esther says, a bad dream to the person in the bell jar, blank and stopped as dead as a dead baby. The world itself is the bad dream. I remembered everything. I remembered the cadavers and which Buddy took her to see, and Doreen, and the story of the fig tree, and Marco's diamond, and the sailor on the common, and Dr. Gordon's wall-eyed nurse, and the broken thermometers. And she goes on and on and on, and then she says, but they were part of me. They were my landscape. Which is really interesting. She's almost just sort of accepting it. She's like, she can't imagine it's a bad dream.
No.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was a lot to take on. I'm just going to see if there's any other. It was me. Sorry, go on.
What is worse, poor Sylvia now will never see Christmas dinner the same again.
Oh my god, I'm really sorry. Yeah, Silky. So this, I think it's Claire says her life was so sad. She had a really not a great time, Sylvia Plath. You know, and it's interesting because she grew up in quite a middle class family. She was well educated and she had expectations of her, but mental health doesn't discriminate in that sense. And so, you know, she clearly was had a very tortured existence, and it's heartbreaking. But you know, obviously if she was had a different upbringing, she was born into a much poorer family in a much poorer area, you know, who knows how it would have ended up for her with regards to, you know, any help that she would have gotten. She certainly wouldn't have gone to a private hospital where she, you know, who knows how it would have ended. But ultimately it still ended with her completing suicide at the age of like 32 or something.
I don't think, no matter what the circumstances would have been, it always ended like that.
Yeah, I like to think maybe it can sometimes be better today if people get the support they need, but a lot of the time people don't, and it can so often comes down to the resources that are available in your area or the country that you live in, whether you have money. Obviously in America you have the issue with medical insurance, which we don't have over here in the UK, but the NHS is massively underfunded. I know I've really struggled to get mental health services over here, and a lot of my friends that get great mental health services over here, it's usually private or it's through work. You know, they've got really good schemes with their work, and I'm self-employed, so I am going to pick June's author. Shall we see?
Please be something a little bit.
I'm not gonna lie, I really want Zora Neale Hurston. I know I say this every month, I'm like desperate to do Zora Neale Hurston. Also, I don't know if we mentioned it before, me and Becca, obviously a lot of these have been quite heavy books and quite heavy, you know, got heavy topics, and we're thinking, me and Becca, for October, obviously October is spooky month, it is Halloween, it is Samhain, we're thinking if authors don't turn up before then, we might just go ahead and do either Shirley Jackson and the Haunting of Hill House. No, the Haunting of Hill House. Yeah, I got that wrong then. Or maybe Mary Shelley and you know, Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, because although they're like dark and spooky, they're also lighter in a way. And I don't know if I'm coming that from like a gothy macabre type person who loves that stuff, but I generally find it quite fun. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
Does everyone be up for that? Sandra says yes, Jamie says yes. Tarot and Tattoos loves both of those books, so we'll see. Debbie says it's a good idea. Claire thinks it's a good idea. Naomi says it's a good idea. Okay, so we'll do that. If they haven't popped up before October, we'll do one or t'other, because one of the other might pop up before then. But yeah, I just think for spooky month, I just want to do a spooky book, you know.
Yeah, we'll do it.
I just can't not. Yeah, everyone's saying yes. It's weird as this deck gets smaller, it's like harder to shuffle because it's going to fling out of my hands.
And did you pick any of the accompanying cards?
Oh crap balls, crap, no, good, well remembered. Let's do that first. That was nearly the second time I'd forgotten. Well, thank you for reminding me. Let's have a quick gander. Have a quick look. There's Octavia. My gal. Okay. Obviously, I've not really read much. Not obviously, I haven't read much Sylvia Plath poetry, so there might be stuff that is noticeable.
One that stuck out for me is the tree.
Oh, interesting.
Because she mentions the fig tree a lot, doesn't she?
She does. Good point. And yeah, she does. I'm going to say bees because Sylvia Plath talks a lot about Hughes, her husband, his beekeeping. She writes a lot about that in her poetry. Let's see, what else have we got? So
I just picked things that stood out to me, like the knife, because she,
oh yeah, she tried to hurt herself. That's a good point.
And the skull, because the anatomy type things that they go and see.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to say noose as well, which also showed up for like kindred and stuff like that for obvious reasons, unfortunately. But this one specifically to Sylvia Plath is sorry if that was really loud in anyone's headphones. Apologies. Those are the ones. There's the ones that have. Oh yeah, because we picked that one for Farrokhzad as well, because she writes about the wall, doesn't she?
I just felt that she was surrounded by like this wall.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's the thing. Loads of them really do cross each other, don't they? They can be for multiple authors, writers. Okay, so pressure. I'm just gonna do a. It's really hard to riffle shuffle. I'm just gonna do a couple of overhandy thingies. Try not to drop it whilst showing you all what I'm doing. Okay, I'm just gonna open it and do it. Fuck off! Are you kidding me?
What have we got?
Zora Neale Hurston. You saw me do that, folks.
Yeah.
I finally, on the 6th one, this was one of the first ones I said I hope comes up. Do you remember in our first one you said, are there any that you kind of really want to pop up? And one of my first ones was this one. Can you believe it? I manifested it. So are you finding her in the book, Becca?
Ryan, was it what was the name? Sorry,
Zora Neale Hurston. This woman is amazing. I'm excited.
125 in the book.
Okay, I've got a bit of a head start on this one because I do know a bit about Zora Neale Hurston, and that's why I'm excited. Do you want to read some stuff out?
Yep, find it.
She's 125. I think she's the last one in the book. How rude.
Picture in the book. So it says that's interesting. Doesn't kind of. So it just goes about her book. She steps into the country house with an empty basket, offered something to eat, and then that's about Zora. Yeah, but it doesn't actually sort of like give a rundown like some of the other pages, does it?
There's a bit on the underneath that says, when she wasn't writing lush fiction about black women owning themselves, Hurston was collecting folk tales around the South and journeying to the Caribbean. There she initiated into voodoo, once by boiling a live black cat, and passing its bones over her lips, and took the first known photograph of a zombie, which she's famous for as well. Hurston fell into obscurity even before her death, and she was buried in an unmarked grave, but has seen a major revival of interest in recent decades among readers, feminists, and critics as a key figure in the Harlem Renaissance, which is a movement. If you're interested, do look up the Harlem Renaissance as well. If you want to know.
Recommended reading is a classic novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, And then there's another one which is Southern Folklore and Voodoo Accounts, Mules and Men, and a controversial autobiography, Dust Tracks on the Road.
Right, I'm just going to quickly look and see what is what's readily available first.
Yeah.
Because, like, remember when we pulled the first card last month and there wasn't much available, because I don't want people to struggle to find the works, or for it to be too expensive either. So let's have a look. So The Eyes Were Watching God is readily available. Stories from Harlem Renaissance.
For Mules and Men, because that's all about the voodoo stuff, isn't it? Oh, here
it is.
So that's available on Amazon, Mules and Men.
Oh, I can't find that. Hang on. Tell My Horse, PS. Dust Tracks on the Road is readily available as a Kindle, but I can't seem to find a thing. Oh, Mules and Men. I can't seem to find a physical Mules and Men. Let me see if I can just.
It does look really interesting, though, doesn't it? Mules
and Men,
treasury of Black African folklore, as collected by a famous storyteller and anthropologist who grew up hearing songs and sermons. But tales from the South. But if we can't get it on.
Hang on, no, Blackwell's have got it. Yeah, Blackwell's have got it. How about you folks overseas? Have you? So I'm sorry. Anyone? Shall we do the folklore one then? Mules and Men.
Yeah, because yeah, it's available paperback on Book Depository.
Cool, and I found it on. Yeah, I found it on a couple of ones. Sorry, my love. Say that again.
I just said it's available on the Book Depository for £11.44.
Cool. Okay. I think because we've done a novel, we've done a collection of poetry, but we haven't actually done a collection of small stories or folklore. So I think maybe that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Should we do that? Okay. So our author for June is Zora Neale Hurston, and our book is Mules and Men. Oh, they've got Tell My Horse as well, actually. Is that easier to get a hold of? So there's Tell My Horse.
I don't mind either.
Has anyone read either of them and can recommend one over t'other? Jamie Kelly, it's Zora Neale Hurston. And there's Mules and Men, and there's Tell My Horse. But I'm just trying to see which one's more available. It seems that Tell My Horse might be a bit more readily available and a bit cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, they're both available on Book Depository, and they're both £11.55.
Oh, okay, cool. So shall we? Which one do you want to go for?
So Tell My Horse is based on the acclaimed author personal experience in Haiti, Jamaica. Oh yes, while she participated in an initiation rather than just being an observer. So that sounds cool.
And then what's Tell My Horse? Tell My Horsey. Where's Tell My Horse? Let's see. Let's click on that one. Doop 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 doo.
It says it's not Tell My Horse is a remarkable, an invaluable resource and remarkable guide to voodoo practices, rituals, and beliefs. So I'm happy with either.
I'm just reading the description of them both. Oh, some of yours. Yeah, I think tell my horse seems to be a little bit more available. No, mule. Sorry. Oh, I don't know, because one's actually one. Okay, so Tell My Horse is Zora's personal experience, but Mules and Men is a collection of folklore.
Yeah.
So it's whether we want to read folklore or if we want to read her sort of journey into start looking at voodoo.
Yeah.
Mules and Men keeps coming up in the chat, but also
it's a mixture of it says it's like a pinch of everything social mixed with storytelling. So set intimately within the social context of Black life, the stories, big old lies, songs, voodoo customs, and superstitions recorded in these pages capture the imagination and bring back to life the humor and wisdom that is the unique heritage of African Americans.
Yeah, I think let's do Mules and Men, because it's going to give us a more rounded sort of look at different stories, whereas maybe Tell My Horse will be from like a more of a personal story. If people want to also read Tell My Horse, you're perfectly welcome to.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not looking at Mules and Men Max Notes Literature Guide. Okay, hang on. No, it says by Zora Neale Hurston on the book, and it's got a similar cover to Tell My Horse. Yeah, the black and white cover. That's the one I'm looking at. So we'll have to make sure that we're getting the right one. Thank you, Laura. Oh, I'm one sweaty Betty. I've got the window open, but it's still too warm for me, and it's not even proper summer yet.
Nope.
So, thank you so much, Becca.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. I've not enjoyed the book, but I always enjoy it.
I have a feeling you're going to enjoy this next one, though.
I think I will, definitely.
Yeah. So Mules and Men, Tarot and Tattoos, that's right. So, as usual, I will do some research, and I'll do a little mini bio video about Zora Neale Hurston and provide links of where I got my research from and just further reading and any and I already can think of one podcast off the top of my head about her that would be interesting that I've talked about before, and any articles or videos that will be interesting for people to get to know her. And I'll make sure I post the book that we'll be reading on Instagram, and as well as on my community tab on my channel as well. So it's trying to get it in all the places. Anyway, thank you to everyone that's been here and chatted. Sorry that the chat is so weird on StreamYard. It doesn't let me see the whole thing, and it sort of it will like jump and then get stuck, and it doesn't scroll smoothly, so I'm sure I've missed stuff. So I apologize if I've missed your comment or question. I apologize. And yeah, again, thank you to Becca, who has been doing this project with me from the beginning. It's awesome having you on board. And yeah, everyone take care of yourself, be safe and well, and we'll speak to you soon. Ciao. Bye. Click the end broadcast button. Sometimes takes a while to actually do the thing.